Hello and welcome at Focustrap, a digital accessibility podcast. My name is Tim Dame and I'm joined by Joran Quinten, web tech lead engineering manager at Jimbo and author of the book Building Real-World Web Applications with Vue 3. Welcome, Joran.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes,
Looking
yes,
forward
great
to the
that
next.
you
Yeah,
great that you joined us online in the online studio. I'm hoping to have some nice conversations about web development and accessibility.
yeah,
Thanks for the time.
yeah. No problem. Always happy to talk about anything web related, and accessibility is a pressing matter sometimes. So it's an important topic to highlight.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's why we started the podcast, of course. Great to have you on. We've met already, also in real life, in New York of all places. That's great at the JS Nation front end conference, which was very nice.
Yeah. So two Dutch people meeting each other for the first time in old Amsterdam or New Amsterdam. It's it's
Yeah,
a strange coincidence.
yeah, indeed. But we had some fun at the conference, and also at the speakers dinner. It was a really nice experience.
Yeah, it was. You gave a talk about an accessibility topic, I imagine. I can't recall what it was about, to be honest, but
Scaling accessibility.
yeah,
More on the topic of accessibility in big organizations. Of course, many more than 10 or 10 to 20, 50 engineering teams. It's get harder to take one line or take one position on accessibility and
yeah,
have the same level of accessibility.
yeah, I get that. Well, with every added line of communication adds a lot more complexity to any organization. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
indeed. Yeah, we just entered 2025, which is nice, of course. Looking back at 2024, there are some successes you can share. Maybe some successes personally, but also as organization.
yeah. So, I would say on a personal level, well, the conference that you mentioned was the first time that we organized it in New York. New Jersey actually, but we call it New York, which I think uh, was a great success actually. And I'm not doing the heavy lifting there. I'm on the program committee, but I had the benefit of being able to join the conference regardless. That was one of the highs of last year. And I would say on well, the book that you mentioned was, well, I sort of not going to plug it now because it's already outdated since I'm writing a book about technology that always has a very short shelf life. But it was fun to do. That was the first time that I did something like that. It was published in, I think, January, February, and sold more copies than I had set my own target for. So that was I would say a success as well. Um, and on professional level, or from let's talk about this from the Jumbo perspective. It's fun that in 2022, so that's a couple of years ago already, we got a scathing report about accessibility. And since we're now on the accessibility topic, I dressed up a bit of those details of the trajectory that we entered at that point. So our e-commerce solution was vetted, and the report that was generated was just not good. So 2023 actually stood in the main focal point of that year was to get rid of that bad rating. And we did a lot of effort with the whole development department to increase our accessibility. Actually, in 2023, there was a new report generated on based on our e-commerce solution, and then we came out at, I think, somewhere at a top 5. So I dredged up some details, not all of them, but we improved our situation by miles. And I would say that last year, 2024, we started to not just solidify that position, but also take some additional steps in incorporating the accessibility aspect into our e-commerce solution. And I think that's within the context of this podcast as well. That's also one of the highlights of last year. There were others, but I would say that this is the most relevant one to talk about today. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's something we can get into in more detail. I would say it's
Yeah, sure.
really
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, really nice to hear about you guys after the work that you did. But speaking about the book, and yeah, so the target was the target was you sold more than you set as a target. But some numbers. Can you
Okay.
share some
Yeah, you
numbers?
want
Yeah.
you want numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
So so the goal of writing the book for me personally was to publish a book, which was step one. And then I figured, so as soon as I've done this, I will be happy if I sell, say, 50 copies in once it's done. This will not turn into a profit, but I was doing this in collaboration with a publisher, so I wasn't the one taking the risk, which was fine by me. But by the end of the year, I did some counting and I exceeded 300 copies over the course of a year. So I'm very pleased with that. Particularly because my goal was not to sell books, but to experience the whole book writing process. And this was just,
Yeah.
yeah, sugar on top. I think it's, in a way, it is rewarding to see that the effort that I've put in resonates at least with a couple of people, enough at least so that they are willing to purchase it, which was fun. And I would also yeah, I think what I also, but this was not the last year, but the year before, was a sort of a yes year where I said yes to all of the challenges that came into my life, and one of them was writing a book, and I think that's also a nice experience, and this is then again the reward of taking chances and trying out new things and experimenting with well, stuff you've never done before. I think it's cool that that you're then able to a do it and b exceed your own goals. And maybe I was a bit um, cautious, probably because I wasn't really sure how it would land. But yeah, either way, I exceeded my own expectations, which I think is something to celebrate, regardless of your initial goals. Yeah. It was fun. It was fun writing it. Also very difficult and time consuming, but also fun. Yeah.
Yeah. About how time consuming are you speaking about? So writing a book would be one of my future goals as well. I think it would be awesome to do that. What do they say? A man should write a book, plant a tree, build a family.
Well, I'm already there, I think.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. But yeah, it does take a lot of effort. I think I started, uh, it took me, I think, about 9 months from start to finish. And then the beginning was trying to figure out content. And luckily, AI was already a thing back then, so I could use it to generate a couple of projects and ideas. Um, and since I had no idea what to talk about, I figured I want to make this a book, which I can give to junior developers or aspiring web developers, and that they can build some sort of portfolio during the course of the book, so that you have something practical and well tangible almost by the end of it, and that would be something that you could showcase to future employers or possible employers, and that would be then the value that you get out of following all of the assignments in the book. Um, the reason I took that approach is because I have also read tutorials, books, and whatnot, where you do these. The To Do app is a very famous one. It is, to be honest, it's part of chapter one or two. Or not sure, but it only gets you so far, and it doesn't really um, net you anything apart from building a simple app. And I would would like to see that you build a couple of apps while gaining a bit more understanding. So the apps that you build can become more and more complex. And these could also be apps that you could use in your daily life, and having them connected to something that you could potentially do, like a recipe generator or something that helps you in figuring out what the problems are that your users are facing, and how you can come up with solutions. And I hope that I have stressed in my book enough that everybody has freedom to make it their own project. Um, but yeah, so that was backtracking to the initial to the initial question. So this was about generating lots of content and lots of projects and ideas, and that took me a while. And then I scheduled every Tuesday evening, I believe, and on a weekly basis, it took me every week a couple of hours to first you need to build the app yourself to figure out what are logical steps, and what are steps that you could potentially follow as a newcomer to technology. And then it's after you've built the app, it's deconstructing it and breaking it up into little steps. Then it's about writing all of those initial steps. And that takes a lot of time, to be honest, because at least I have a background in front end development. So I'm used to, well, not used to documenting. That's also, um, that might also be very typical. I'm not speaking for everybody, but writing is hard for me in the context of an app. But this time I had to write how it works, why you're building it like this. So that was a new perspective, which was in hindsight was also very helpful for me to get a much better understanding about the technology that I was using. I think they also say if you can explain it to someone, you will learned or mastered it. I wouldn't consider myself a master, to be honest. There was always so much to learn. But being able to explain it at least makes sure that you have a solid understanding yourself. So every chapter took me well a lot of time and effort, and then it gets to your reviewers, and then you get a lot of feedback, and you have to revisit all of those old chapters and content that you've written, and try to figure out what the heck was I thinking at that point in time, or where was I going? And again, that new perspective again teaches you well a new experience to see how indeed those junior developers or junior readers would interpret the text that you think is unambiguous. But if you read it for the second time, it's hard to get straight what I was initially trying to, well, the point I was trying to get across. So yeah, it was fun. Uh, I would not say that I would do this again anytime soon. Maybe a long-term future, because of the investment, and also if I'm honest, I already said this, but the shelf life is really short. So the value that I created is short lived. In 2 years' time, it will be outdated and not really usable. Um, but that was fine for me because the goal was not to build something that lasts for ages. The goal for me was to experience the writing process, which I think is a good way of approaching things as well. To set your goals to things that work for you, and don't be bothered by everything else that you can add to it. Um, because sometimes you just can't manage, and it's okay to do it as best as you can do, with the amount of effort you're willing to put into it. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. It looks like a great process, and a process where you can learn so much from. And I think releasing a book is one of these milestones that I would go for myself as well in the future. So no, great to hear all about it and all the experience you had and the reasons behind it. Yeah, thanks. And looking forward. 2025. What is 2025 going to be for a year? In terms of accessibility, of course. Also, the EIA is coming up. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of companies are making moves right now. How do you see this?
Yeah. So I was not necessarily cautiously optimistic, but pretty optimistic about the arrival of not necessarily the necessity of the EAA, but I think it is good to have that stick and not necessarily always the carrot to motivate people. Um, so I was cautiously optimistic, but I learned today, I saw it on social media, that this is not in Europe. The White House pulled their accessibility guidelines, I think, from their governmental website. And I thought, oh, shoot, this is going in a completely wrong direction, regardless of politics or um, yeah, that's a different dangerous topic to
Yeah,
dive into.
I think.
But
Oh yeah. Also, sorry to interrupt you, but the new
yeah, yeah,
website that they released is also not accessible. I checked it, and I
yeah,
think uh, in terms of like Trump and his movement, I think accessibility is going down under the flag of like moving against DEI, which I think, yeah, is of course it's not definitely not a great thing, but it also to me accessibility stands on its own. So yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I have opinions about the political implications and
yeah,
politics in general. Um, but it's something that stands on its own. If you make an analogy to buildings, we build doors that fit people, right? Not small doors that fit half of the population. Or um, so what is happening, or what seems to be happening, so I want to be careful in how I put this or phrase this, is that people choose excluding people over inclusivity. And I think it is, yeah, the bottom line, or the mindset that you should have when thinking about accessibility, is being inclusive to everybody. Um, and that is perfect in line with what I think is or was originally the vision of the web, is that it is something where we can connect with anybody in the world. And anybody means anybody. So again, the being inclusive comes back in this mindset as well. And excluding people, talking about accessibility, sometimes people get excluded not on purpose, but just because lack of awareness. Um, and that is something different than at least on purpose excluding people, or groups of people even. So while I was being cautiously optimistic about the developments in the European Union, I also see very alarming signals in other parts of the world. Um, but yeah, it is what it is, and that's not that's something that we can change, unfortunately. But what we can do, and that's where the EAA or Europe or any company anywhere in the world, it doesn't really uh, um, have to be a European organization or anything. Um, but by setting a good example, setting the right examples, I think that would be the only way for us, people, developers, people
hmm
contributing to the web, to set the right example and make sure that whatever we build gets a bit more inclusive with every line of code we commit. It might be a positive outlook. I'm not sure. But that should be the aspiration of everybody who makes their money on the web.
no, definitely, and yeah, on that note, last thing I would say, connected to politics, but of course there can be policies in place and not in place anymore in the future. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's also about web developers themselves and companies and a lot of other people putting in effort to build accessibly. For example, I learned about how Microsoft is approaching accessibility. They have a policy that if they do business with a company that's software related, that this company adheres to the WCAG standards, and they will actually test this themselves. So when you get into like an and like a hiring stage, but then for companies, you have to show that you are accessible. Otherwise, no relation can be built. So that's actually a great example on how things can work as well. It doesn't have to do anything with politics. So yeah.
Exactly. Regardless of, I think you said it correctly, regardless of politics or rules or regulations, um, yeah, you should all strive to set an example and make it the best possible web for everybody.
Yeah, no, definitely. Talking about EAA, so the deadlines this year, end of June, is also the Jumbo gearing up, or you guys have been doing a lot. You just
Yeah.
said, but
Yeah. We are on track, I believe. So I moved to a different team since the beginning of this year. So that means that I have less eyes on our progress. But from what I see, we are either already compliant or we are very close to doing so. So it was I think in hindsight, a good thing that in 2022 we got that wake up call. Let's call it that, and we had enough time to put our efforts into building up our accessibility. And the lesson or a lesson here is that once you've set it up, you have a solid foundation, and then it's much easier to expand on that foundation or improve upon it. So that would be one of the key takeaways as well. Is if you spend your time at an early stage, make sure that you have your have all of your what's the expression, have it all checked and make sure that it works and that it is compliant. Then it's much more easy to follow stricter guidelines or to improve upon it or to do whatever you like, as long as you keep those that baseline in place.
yeah, no, definitely. So you moved into a new position, but you were doing a lot of things for the design system.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how important do you think an accessible design system thing is in terms of being accessible?
Yeah. So what we did do at Jumbo is we have a sort of well, it's not a two-pronged approach, but we have two solutions that work very well in tandem if you look at it from an accessibility standpoint. And one is that in what we used to have is a lot of micro applications that were used to make sure that we have an e-commerce solution. And what we did over the course of last year and the year before is to try and solidify and merge them into a single front end platform where still teams have their own space to work in, but the foundation is the same. One of the benefits there is that people have to spend less time on maintenance, dependencies, updates of all of that, and all of those regular chores, the pipelines, and all of the DevOps stuff as well. So that's all being handled by an sort of an abstraction layer, or we call it a front end platform. And that helps in freeing up time for developers because they spend little or less time in doing all of those activities, which don't really add value for their business capabilities. They just cost time and time and resources and money. So having more time means you can spend your efforts where you want them. And the other topic or solution that we have is our design system, indeed. And that has been around for quite some time, to be honest, but not always in the same capacity. It started out, and this is, I think, a regular occurrence as a component library, simply something where developers who are building and recognizing repeating patterns, they store, well, developers are lazy or smart, depending on how you look at it, but you store them in a central repository or place where everybody can use them, and you don't have to build that button or well, the button is always the most tangible example, but you have to build it once and then you can use it anywhere. Um, so that the design system started to, or component library started to mature into a full-fledged design system. We can confidently say that at this point. Um, And there, I think a couple of aspects are very important. Looking at it from accessibility point of view, well, the component library was mostly a tool for developers, not necessarily UX designers, UI designers, or accessibility experts for that matter. It was more of a place where you could exchange code. But since we've started to call it a design system, for us, it also means that the whole design and development cycle is part of that design system. So UX designers, UI designers, and developers, they work together in solving these challenges. And that helps because what we had before is that sort of a micro waterfall in our agile workplace where a design was built and it was transferred to a developer, and then developer picks it up, translates it to code, and then it's put on production. But what we now see is that there is much more of a thought process before any code gets written or anything gets designed. So we're first looking, what should this pattern achieve? What should it do? And then you can take a look at all of the aspects that come into place with building these patterns, like performance, security, and obviously accessibility too. So we can, from the ground up, start to include it. And as I said earlier, if you do this at an early stage, you can benefit from all of the efforts that you spent at that point in time. And you can just expand it as soon as you start to iterate on your component or on your pattern. So I think those two solutions, so both the front end platform where people can focus on building and delivering features, as well as the design system, they have helped us in focusing our efforts into adding value and not necessarily um, doing the maintenance, doing the tech debt, or there is of course still maintenance to be done and tech debt to resolve. But I think this is handled now in a much more focused way, a much more manageable, and also much more visible, which also helps in keeping track of the things that you have to do. And I think there's a final piece of this puzzle to be added, and that's the way that we contribute to our design system. So when we had this component library, this was originated from the ID, well, basically not necessarily from an ID, but how we are working together already. So teams who collaborated closely and are um, building on neighboring features, for instance, a shopping basket, there would be multiple teams having an interest in that thing, and they would collaborate and they would together sit together and decide how should we build this pattern, how can this pattern be used, who do we need to talk to? Well, those people, if you want to make changes, especially breaking changes. And when we moved from our component library to our design system, we also took into consideration the way that we want to keep maintaining this and keep it up to date. And what we have devised is, well, we're not the inventors of this. We just taken a look at what other people are doing. But we have implemented a contribution model where we have everybody from every development team able to contribute to the component library. And that's really helpful because in some cases, those are the experts that have most in-depth knowledge about those certain business capabilities or patterns. And they are the ones that you want to be in control of a pattern. And in order to make sure that we have a solid foundation, and also allow teams to move at a certain pace, because when teams are building new features, they don't want to be waiting on a design system team for them to build their components for them so that they can use it. I'm not sure if that model is applicable in any organization, to be honest. But it depends. Either way, what we did is we made sure that the basis, the foundation, is the responsibility of the design system team. They can get resources from other teams as well if they need it. And depending on how close or how much a pattern is shared across teams, there are a couple of tiers. So we have a shared tier in our design system. And then in the case of the basket, the people or the teams who are stakeholders in the basket, they are part of that tier and they decide, they are the owner, they decide how it should be treated. Other people can still make contributions, they can still use it, but they are not responsible because they are not the experts. So that's our next tier, and then we have our it's a team tier. It's just something that only exists in a team, and this could be either in the form of a POC or just a feature that only lands in just one team. And that, of course, can eventually, over time, be promoted to a shared tier, and then new rules come in effect for that component or pattern. But that's I think, the way that we are making sure that everybody is involved in the design system. The design system is used by everybody, and everybody is up to speed. And we can also focus our efforts on not just the design system, of course, also building business features and doing other crazy things. But this allows us to get more focused. Like the front end platform gives us freedom to pursue new opportunities. I think so. Yeah, so those two things with that implementation, I think they are key to the successes that we're now having. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine this looks like a very refined way of working. One with the development platform you talked about, taking um, things out of the things to do out of the engineering teams so they can focus on building features, not on maintaining the product so much. And the way you guys have set up the design system and contribution tiers, I think it's also very refined, and it's very interesting to get to know also these different strategies, because some design system are closed off and then only responsible by the design system team is responsible to do all the changes. Some take the more open, completely open way of working. And what you guys came up with is more like an hybrid version where you have
Yeah.
yeah. Also,
Yeah,
there's
that's
also
true.
room for like um, some customization.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. And I think that freedom for customization is also key in making sure that people don't misuse the design system. So it shouldn't be a bottleneck. It should be something that helps you move faster, and not something that you should strictly follow in order to yeah, for the sake of using the design system. And I do have to add that indeed, this approach we have designed or implemented this approach because we were taking a look at how is our organization now structured and what works for our organization. So when I said earlier that closed system, I'm not sure if that works for any organization. It depends on the organization, of course. It might work, um, but I think the design system should follow, well, should make you move faster. So it should follow the way that you're already working. And that can be in a hybrid model, it can be in an open model, it can also be in a closed one. I think it's all of the options are probably always valid. But in our case, this hybrid one was the way to go. And of course, in practice, what you see is that still people sometimes cut corners, and that's fine. You need to have some elbow room in order to build features sometimes. Um, so we said from the beginning, we're not our design system is called Compass. We're not the Compass police. We're just, the Dutch police is, what's the, yeah, they're very helpful. Let's put it that. So in that way, we are the police, but we are the helpful police, and not enforcing you to use something in a certain way. We want to make sure that you want to use it in a certain way because it helps you move faster. And if it doesn't, then you have a very good reason of not using it, and that's fine also.
That's actually great reasoning behind some like more platformy style applications. Very relatable in terms of also my team at the ABN, what we are doing and building. It's also like the strategy is to make it as good as possible, so teams want to use it.
Yeah.
Um, while not telling them that they need to use it. So they actually they really want to use it because it saves them time and effort um, if they would have to do it themselves. So that's
Yeah, indeed.
actually great. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and it works, or at least from my perspective, if I build a side project, I don't use our Jumbo design system, but I tend to grab a existing component library, not build everything from the ground up, because you have to think about so many edge cases and supportive features that no, you're for especially for side projects where you are very limited on time. That would not be the wise choice, I would say. So that there you already this is like the big contrast of being a single developer, so very small resources, amount of resources, sometimes with very big dreams, but then you see that it works, that is the correct motivation.
yeah. No, no, indeed. These great insights. Thank you, Johan. And so currently you transitioned into the role of engineering manager. So what you are currently are doing at the Jumbo. So how is it going for you? Is it like a full-time management role or also some engineering still? Um,
Yeah, so it's a hybrid role as well. What I'm doing is I'm managing the parts of the customer service teams. So and these are very important teams for Jumbo. One of our propositions is that we put the customer first. So in that regard, customer service is highly important. And it's not just the customer who buys the product; it's also store service. So whenever stores have questions about orders, deliveries, or whatnot, they also access our service center. And for those digital solutions, well, we have a couple of teams ready to help them and build new features that help them even more. Um, but I'm also doing some development on the side, and I think that's fine. I In the future I would probably would want to move into a more managerial role, but this hybrid is a good way to transition, I would say. Um, yeah, and on one hand, um, I was in the design system team, and that was I had a lot of fun in building out the strategy, the vision, the components. So I do miss that sometimes, and I don't have time to do that anymore. But this is a new challenge. This is also very fun, very much fun. And yeah, trying out new things is also a way to grow. So I think it keeps life interesting as well. Yeah, it's fun. So, but yeah, I do a bit of both. Still a bit of front end, using the platform, using parts of the design system. But we're also building some POC, so not always using the design system. And I have to admit that this situation is also very interesting as well, because now I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm now not actively promoting the design system. I'm now seeing how it gets used by people, and I'm now one of those people who tries to use it. And then you realize that you run into, or you can run into different issues or quirks that need addressing. Um, but yeah, luckily I have a direct hotline to the former team, so that helps. But it's valuable for them as well, because it provides insights on actual
yeah.
usage, and that's always very well, not always. I think in our organization, at least, it can be very difficult to track how it is actually
Mm.
used, how it is actually perceived. Um, yeah, so that's also well always a challenge, I would say, in getting the right metrics and being able to to trust them and making sure you're going in the right path or right direction.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. One thing that so personally, I'm also more transitioning into more management related role, still doing uh, engineering tasks as well. But to me, it is also a bit scary transitioning more to a management role because I always want to stay connected to engineering and front end development. Because I have the feeling, okay, if I completely let go of it, then I also then I think at some point, if I will just lose so much knowledge, and being able to manage engineering teams is also, you need to have this knowledge. I would say, yeah. To me, it's always a bit double. 100% management, not engineering anymore. It's a bit scary to me.
Yeah, I get, I get you, and
Yeah.
that's how I started as well. Now I have to say that if you are familiar with the paradigms and techniques and like at a certain abstract level, then you probably know enough because you should not build the solutions for your team. You should help them. They are the experts at. So that's indeed well, it's a big transition because at that point they are the experts, and you should be able to trust them to come up with the right solution. And they they probably not always will, but you that's the same goes for you. So if you were still a developer full time, you would also sometimes do something that's not directly relevant or make mistakes, and but that's also part of the learning and development process because you learn a lot from the things that you did wrong. Um, but yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. I was on the same page, but now I'm more into it is also okay to let go a bit. But it's yeah, it's like getting rid of your training wheels when riding a bicycle. It's development is very familiar, very
Mm.
comfortable sometimes. You can do that on your side project still, Tim. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Just keep the side projects
Yeah,
up there.
exactly. Yeah.
But in terms of like, okay, now in a management role for a team, how would you go about, like, sometimes you need to balance out, okay, here we are now prioritizing this a little bit more over this. Of course, quality needs to stay high. Accessibility now is coming up as legislation, so we need to be compliant there as well.
Yeah.
For example, we also need to take care of our security, and there are probably a backlog full of new features that we need to create. Balancing out certain priorities. How is it? Is it something that you approach?
Um, with difficulties sometimes. But so balancing the priorities. Luckily, it's well, we do Scrum, so we also have a PO that is also partly responsible for the priorities and the prioritization. But indeed, we have to make sure that we have a sound product, and that can mean that you need to spend more efforts on filling some security gaps or closing them, or you need to scramble because indeed EAA is on its way and we're not compliant. Um, but this is that's the ongoing task or activity actually that you need to be constantly aware of what's coming up. What are we doing right now? Where do we stand? And with us, I would say that for roughly 80%, I would say that the product owner is in charge of the product, which I think makes a lot of sense. And I would be more in charge of the team to make sure that the team is healthy in a healthy spot. So we have enough knowledge in house, we have enough procedures, we have enough resources to do our job. Um, yeah, so but that I think the challenge then is still the same, but this time it's with people and not necessarily with software. Um, but this is about talking to a lot of stakeholders, people involved, getting grips on regulations and getting as much information as you can to make a decision. And again, sometimes that's not the good decision in hindsight, as long as it's the best decision and at that point in time, I think you're good. Um, yeah, but yeah, it's an ongoing balancing act.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easygoing, and sometimes it's challenging. But yeah, that's also what keeps life interesting, right? To alternate between busy periods and some quiet time.
Yeah. And in terms of knowledge, of course, the engineering team, your engineering team also needs to keep up to date with the latest knowledge, variety of topics. I can imagine how are you approaching this, staying up to date with the latest trends, but also with accessibility, for example.
Do you mean for me or for the team?
Yeah, for both. Yeah, both. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So from me personally, what I do to stay up to date is to make sure to, while I'm on social media, I try to, that's maybe also one of my goals for 2025 to lessen my time spent on social media. And I'm mostly active well, not active. I'm opening Blue Sky every now and then. I'm probably most active on LinkedIn, but also not very active in contributing. But there you see trends emerging, and I think that helps in figuring out what you can or need to focus on. And for me personally, I always have sort of I have a Notion file in front of me with topics, and I paste links into that file, or I add them to my bookmarks, and I sometimes I read them, sometimes I forget about them completely. Um, and I'm somewhat in the conference circuit as well, so those are always good opportunities. Well, I'm privileged in that sense that I am a part of the program committee, that I see all of these topics submitted in my inbox
Yeah,
mostly.
it's interesting as well. Yeah.
Um, and there it is very easy to identify at least trends.
AI.
AI, yeah, I was going to say it. AI, machine learning, everything related to those. Well, machine learning or AI is a hot topic, and it will be for the upcoming year, I suppose. Also, a bit skeptical about actual usage. Now, there are some good use cases, but that's a different topic altogether. But that, yeah, so staying up to date is sort of part of what you would do on a daily basis. And sometimes information comes to you, sometimes you need to grab it. And as for that, for making sure that the team is up to speed, um, I think so. From my point of view, it's a matter of having eyes on who knows what, and if that knowledge is evenly distributed, do they know enough? And if the knowledge is not evenly distributed, make sure that people do regular pair sessions or whatever they need to do in order to transfer some of their knowledge. Um, and as part of having them gain new insights, new information, I think an interesting story here, or well, story anecdotes, is what we are doing now with on the accessibility topic. That's also why I'm thinking about it, of course. Is inviting people over who are the experts, but also who are actual stakeholders. So people with, for instance, disabilities and different kinds of disabilities as well, to have them in our UX lab and make sure that people who are stakeholders in building features understand in practice what happens with somebody who has disabilities and has different means of operating software, or has challenges with operating our current software, because then you know what you need to address. So having those and having those experts over and having those workshopy things, that helps as well. And it's of course also up to, I would say that any individual who works in web should be able to know how he or she or them um, gains knowledge and stays up to date. It's part of the job. It's not your job is not to write code. It's to write. Speaking for developers, at least, it's not writing code. It's writing the best code at that moment in time. And in order to be able to do that, you need to have you need to have knowledge about what's going on right now and also what's going on in the future. So it's also individual's responsibility, I would say. And I think everybody who, after a while, still works in tech is probably capable of doing that. So that's probably not necessarily a concern But sometimes people do need to be pointed in the right direction or need an extra hand, and that's okay too. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Great. Yeah. Definitely something to I would encourage all of the listeners as well. Integrate users in your testing flow as well. The end users, of course, and users with disabilities into this group. Start testing with your very valuable, and setting up these sessions can be extremely rewarding as well.
Yeah.
Giving you because especially for large organizations, sometimes it's harder, or sometimes you are so far away from the end user as a developer or a product manager or designer that you tend to forget that you are building together with humans for other humans.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, one of the should be remembered and taken care of in an organization, especially when your organization gets bigger and you start making money as well. You should spend
Yeah,
some time
definitely.
in user research and testing with your end users. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not sure if you do this. I know that some organizations do have these keyboard Fridays, or changing the settings for your device so that you have to use it as a in this case temporarily disabled human. We don't do this at Jumbo. That I think it can provide some valuable insights in how your software is being used by a portion of your visitors. So that's always something that you can keep in your back pocket to explore on a rainy Friday.
Yeah, yeah. A great tip in terms of these testing yourself. I would encourage everyone to turn off the brightness of the screen fully, start up the screen reader, and use only keyboards to navigate your application.
Yeah,
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 if
and
you
then also be aware that
yeah
the way that you're now experiencing it is
yeah
still very much is a very yeah is wide off of what a permanently disabled individual
yeah
would experience, because they
yeah
are of course much better practiced in using these tools.
definitely
But
yeah.
that at least it highlights some of the struggles that you could encounter.
I think a very nice exercise for everyone to um, experience a little bit of what it's like using the application that you are building um, with a disability.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Great. Okay, I'm going. So for the last questions, I'm going to ask a series of 3 questions, and I would like you to try to answer with yes or no.
Okay.
Um, would you release something to production if it's not secure?
I want to say yes, but it happens sometimes that it's no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, cool. Would you release something to production if you know that it's not accessible?
Say,
Yeah. So, if a product is finished, if is a product finished, is it if it's not accessible?
so honestly, no, it's not. It's like a car with no seatbelts, or
Mhm.
uh, but yeah, sometimes you do cut corners in practice, and um, I think it's so. Yes, this happens, and it should not happen, but we all know that it does happen. I think it is good to be aware when this has happened. Um, and also, this is something that we all need to talk with to our product owners about. That you are delivering a car with no seatbelts, or that you are that it's not finished, and that there needs to be follow up at least, and it needs to be addressed as soon as possible. And sometimes you do deploy a feature because of time constraints or other types of pressure. It happens. We all know it. But then at least try to make sure that you follow up on it and that you make it better. Um, Luckily, I would say that, but it's not a guarantee, and that's so. It's also a warning. Starting out with luckily is then a very bad signal. But that using a design system with solid foundations helps you in getting up to speed. But as I said, it's not a guarantee, because if you misuse the properties or the features of that design system, then you are perfectly capable of building something that's very inaccessible, even to the most normal, or normal is not the right word for this, but the most average human. Um, so so it's both a tool as something that you need to still be considerate about. It still needs to be part of the development cycle anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. Um, yeah, compare. I like to compare like security versus accessibility sometimes, because security is
Yeah.
normally seen as this like, right, we need to do whatever we can to build a secure, which is of course very important as well.
Yeah.
But leveling the two, accessibility and security, is, I think, something that accessibility advocates should go for, at least to try to up it a few levels. I think the European Accessibility Act will help with that, which is nice. Because you can also say, okay, we are not compliant right now if you don't do this, which to a lot of managers is quite convincing. Um, but yeah, it's always nice to see, and I think we will eventually get there once we get some more processes and maybe some extra tools. Also, automation is on the rise as
Yeah.
well in terms of accessibility. But also the processes need to be integrated. So testing with end users, getting the knowledge and getting the trainings in for the organization, making them aware about building accessibly, all helps. So thank you, Johan, for taking the time to record with us. I like the conversation very much. Where can people find you online?
Yeah. So as I as I mentioned,
Yeah.
I'm not that active. And maybe I'll this will change over the year. I'm not sure. But you can find me on Blue Sky. I think my handle is at joranquinten.nl. Sorry, English. Which is also my website, which I haven't updated in quite some time. And by my first name and last name, it's a pretty unique combination. You can also find me on LinkedIn, or anywhere on where my presence on the internet is still visible. Yeah, so you can find me, and I am always happy to talk with people. So if you want to share something with me, or get something from me, feel free to ask, and I might be happy to reply.
All right, great. Thanks again. And to all the listeners, if you like what we do, please consider subscribing or liking or rating or leaving a comment. It's always welcome. Getting some feedback, positive or not, we will read them. Yeah, again, thanks, Joran, and
Yeah, you're welcome.
hopefully get you on another time as well, because I think we can go on for some hours extra as well.
Yeah, well, anything development related, it never ends, and it's always there's so much movement, so many new developments, so many aspects as well. Yeah, I've made some notes before this podcast, and I haven't reached half of them. So,
Yeah, same indeed. All right.
great.
Thanks. See you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye bye.